And now we can go to Q&A session. So let me, so I have some questions that people were asking me when they were registering to the course, to this area, the webinar. So right now I'm gonna check those, and then I'm gonna go back to those on the Twitch. Right, so bigger. And let's also take some tea. Oh yeah, orange tea. I think it's actually from Italy. Very nice, really nice. Oh, all right. So the first question will be, how can I ensure my artwork meets industry standards and it's up, well, the mark? And I would say here, just show your high poly, show your low poly, because if it's game ready model, you want to show low poly for sure. Ideally, try to optimize by mirroring, overlapping your UVs, show textures, do a pose, of course, and render with nice light setup. Take an example, for example, of characters from shipped games as references. Expectation has a lot of them. So another one. So what key aspects should I focus on at each stage of the production pipeline? And here I would tell that the first, I think, stage will be high poly stage, of course. And on that stage, apply details, but not too much. So when what I mean by that is when you like working on your characters, I bet you're gonna be at a situation when you can actually like that. So when you're working on a character, yeah. So when you're working on your character, you will add some, like, for example, damages to your, if you have some kind of like a leather piece hanging, so you will add some kind of texture of that leather. You will, I guess, add some torn areas. And my point here is that it's really nice to add those in high poly stage, and it's even supposed to be there. But try to zoom out at some point until you see the full character in your scene, and try to see if those are readable, or maybe there are so many of them that they're just creating a noise. So what I usually try to do is I always try to zoom out and see like if it's readable enough, and if it's not, I'm gonna add some kind of torn areas, or if it's a texturing stage, I'm gonna make sure that some of my like couple spots here and there of the dirt are visible, and maybe other dirt piece spots can be maybe less visible, but at the same time they shouldn't create too much noise. And by noise I mean it's just when it's just too many of them. And also the good example when it comes to texturing actually, it will be when you're gonna add like a smart material, like a basic smart material with the dirt, you will get a lot of noise, and it's going to be all over the place, like noise and the dirt at the same time. And that's why in that situation you would need to erase most of it to make sure you're going to add a little bit here and there. Let me actually show you example of that, because I think it will be more beneficial. So I have a guy here, I think it was this one, and if we look on this example, let's go down. Yeah, we look at this guy here. So you can tell that he's kind of dirty, but not too much. But why is that? Because we only have some dirt splatters areas here. One here. There is this area torn apart. This is also torn apart. And there is some dirt here. Overall, this jacket is kind of clean. In a way, it's kind of clean. But there are just some spots here and there that I exaggerated. And if we go back to learning different styles of modeling, I exaggerated because I used my experience when I was doing stylized characters. So I made those torn areas a bit bigger than they're supposed to. So they're not like that realistic. They could be smaller, but if they're smaller, they're not going to be that noticeable. So that's why I exaggerate some spots here and there. Dirt here, torn areas here. And by that, you see that we have even some dirt here. It also has some roughness, so it's popping out because of also that. So yeah. So yeah. So the second thing, so this was high poly and texturing at the same time. So when it comes to low poly, make sure your low poly is actually low. So don't add like gazillion polygons. Take an example of low poly, well, for example, for my portfolio or any other on ArtStation. But search for those like from the real low polys from real projects, not by just random people. Make sure that those characters that you will be looking at, they're shipped from the games that were shipped, and not just like a fan art. And when it comes to, of course, texturing, you can always show that you can mirror something, you can overlap something, would be very beneficial. And of course, texturing is like, don't add 4K textures, as I said before. It's going to be too much. All right, so how can I find a high quality, or actually, how can I find high quality and relevant references for the artwork I'm working on? Well, I mean, I would say it's a pretty basic answer for me. So no like secrets. If you're doing a military helmet, for example, search for military helmet. You have Pinterest, you have Google. There are stores, for example, with military helmets that you can use also. Dive into details. There is an area, for example, when it comes to those helmets, there will be an area with the fleece that is made for sticking additional parts. Make sure your models are making sense. So when you add something to your, for example, helmet, there will be there like any other part should kind of connect to something, you know. So that's how you also gonna add like more realism and more believability to your asset or a character. So what approach should I follow to build my portfolio and increase my chances of getting a job in the gaming industry? Very nice question, honestly. So show stages not only with final render with textures, but also renders with your low poly, UVs, and optimization, ideally. And that will be much more beneficial. And that way you will already gonna be standing out from others. So while a good presentation may get some good numbers of views, but does it actually help you getting a job at some good studio? Will these companies ignore the quality that has been actually put on high, low, and textures? It's an interesting question. But if you mean when it comes to ArtStation, then I guess yes, but you could get noticed more, and that could potentially attract more people and recruiters that will offer you a job. But if you're a beginner, and I would recommend focusing more on quality of your work rather than pursuing views, if you were talking about like views on ArtStation, because like you can have 100,000 views and yet not get any offers. On the other hand, some can have offers with only having 100 views. So the amount of views, well, for example, ArtStation, it doesn't kind of show your skill. It just show how much you were kind of advertising yourself in the web, you know. Yeah, so the reason is, so I would say recruiters don't care about the views that much. They care about the or followers. They care about the quality. But one thing, like in the other side, that if you will have a lot of views, you can get more recognition, and that means that more recruiters can see you, basically. So by having more recognition, I mean that if you will be at the top on ArtStation, for example, again, it always comes down to ArtStation. So if you will be at the top of ArtStation all the time, like in the first row, for example, I guess yes, you you will get more attention. So potentially you can attract more job offers. But I would honestly say, if you're a beginner, work on your quality. If you have like a 5 years, for example, then I would say you can kind of balance between those two. You can still work on your quality, but at the same time you can start adding some kind of advertisement to yourself. So I'm a 3D character artist and I'm a fresher. My question is, what is the industry expectation from a fresher? Do people really need to have a 3D character, like a AAA character in portfolio from fresher, or high-res is okay? I would say studios require from beginners to know how to make a full 3D pipeline of a model, which means how to make a high poly, of course, how to low poly, how to make UVs, how to bake all those, how to texture, and ideally how to put that to an engine. For example, Unreal Engine could be like one of those, or Unity. If you're gonna join, for example, Ubisoft, they don't have any of that. They have custom engines. But if you know the basics by going to Unreal or Unity, you kind of know already the basics of other engines because they are kind of the same. Not many things that are changing from that. Right, so also nowadays Blender, if you know, is getting more and more popular, but at the same time, Maya is still right now, still by this date, being a standard. So if you are a fresher and you wanna kind of prepare yourself more for the upcoming offers or internship, I would encourage you to learn how to, well, in Maya, how to import your model from Blender to Maya, how to assign materials, how to check soft and hard edges, and how to export. That will be also very beneficial. All right, so I have a few, I have some like maybe around 10 questions, so bear with me. In your experience, do AAA studios value seeing a consistent personal style across portfolio, or do they prefer adaptability with varied styles that match different game aesthetics? I would say I would vote for different styles, because the more you can do, the more you can join projects, the more like different projects you can join, which is always be more beneficial and easier to find a job. How do recruiters perceive personal projects versus personal work? Can a well-crafted personal piece carry the same weight as ship title experience in portfolio? That's a also very interesting question. So recruiters like when you show them that you are working on something on your own in your free time, and I know that for sure. It tells that you are passionate about your craft and your work. Feel free to talk about like your work that you do like outside of work, I would say, on the interviews with recruiters. I think the first time when you're gonna apply to somewhere, you're gonna have a recruiter talk, and there you can talk about, like, you know, sometimes actually in my free time I try to level up, so I do some characters also. Like this time, like I'm doing a Viking, for example. I almost finished the beard, so yeah, I haven't done beard before or beards before, so I'm trying to learn something new. So that's really exciting. And by saying something like that, will show the recruiter that you are working on your stuff in your free time, so you like what you do, and at the same time you are challenging yourself, which is very nice, and at the same time you're learning something new, which is even better. That's very nice to tell. So my personal characters usually were more complicated, for example, and challenging than those which I was doing for projects in studios. So that's why like when I was applying, I was usually like, I saw that, like, for example, my fan art of one of the character, like when a recruiter saw that, she just contacted me sorry, only because of that character, because it was, she liked it so much. And this was not from a, like as I said, it's not from like a project, it was actually from just like my character that I was doing in my free time. So yeah, I guess also like because like it looks more detailed, it looks like just kind of cooler, I would say, because when you work in production you have less time, sadly. So sometimes you kind of work faster, but then you can miss some things, you know. But when you work in your own stuff, you have much more time, so you can like feedback yourself until the end of your life, basically. Yeah, but yeah, but coming back to that question is like, of course, like at the same time, like I would say characters that were made for games that were shipped has like more value and weight because they went through all the stages of approves, feedbacks, correction, changes, and etc. But I would say if you're like a fresher and you wanna join the industry, work on your characters and like try to like squish everything you can, you know, like try to do your best, and that will be the most correct way. You like, for example, you were working on for a couple of years already, and you have like you know, the thing is that you could have a lot of characters that you were doing yourself at the same time you work for a studio, but the reality could be that sometimes studios are not allowing you to show something for projects that you did before. So that sucks. That could happen. So in this situation, if you know that could happen or that already happened before, work on your own stuff. Make sure you're updating portfolios, your portfolio basically. Keep being busy and keep your skill up. So how to how to present my character the best way? Yeah, I would say like do a cool lightning, memorable pose, add some story by doing that, and it will be the best basically. How to understand when you reached a AAA quality on your project? Well, I would say like my personal opinion, AAA is in the indicator of how much money was invested into the project. So any Sony games like Horizon, Last of Us, Uncharted have the quality of AAA budget. So those could be an example of that bar that you want to reach. So usual indicators for those AAA kind of standards will be photorealistic, of course, quality, and attention to details, and not only from model side, also on the animation side and VFX. So basically, take examples from Uncharted, Last of Us, Horizon, and this could be your, I would say, like a goal that you want to reach. For those without experience trying to get their first one, what do companies expect to see in our portfolio to be considered as a potential candidate? So I would recommend to have a couple of characters, and that will be enough if you start from zero, basically, in realistic style and in stylized style, just in case. Because then you can, for example, if you're applying for Blizzard and they have Overwatch, they have also Diablo, so you can kind of apply to both of those at the same time. If you only have Overwatch, then you can apply to only Overwatch, but that like 50% less chances to get in. So ideally, do both styles would be the best. And also don't forget to show high quality textures, of course, ideal some kind of optimization, and render that in engines. I would say like Unreal. I like to render in Unreal. I used to do it in Marmoset, but Unreal has like much more potential, and you can play around with shaders. Plus, it's an engine, so you can even add a animation. You can do so many things in Unreal because, as I said, it's the engine. Marmoset is kind of too limiting, I would say. Well, at least for me, honestly. Do you sculpt directly on an image plane or freehand by looking at references? So yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation. If it's a face, I would go back and forth using photos to check. If any other model like vests, shirts, and etc., I will just eyeball it. So it really depends. All right, so if you have some production models you have done for a client. So you already have some renders and tables for production, but only with T-pose or A-pose. Is it worth it to get into rigging and then posing phase to have all renders of the project in pose? So basically, do we need to render, do we need to leave a character in A pose, or should we pose it? Or considering that is a production model with someone else more prepared, caring about rigging animation, you just have to say. So I would say, of course, having a post model will be more beneficial. When I worked in outsource, I remember sometimes we in our studio could render and pose characters and then send them for approval. Sometimes it was all done on the client side, so we just only get the fully prepared renders that we could post on ArtStation, for example. I think Overwatch, they also have prepared renders for artists. I'm not sure, but if you look on the Overwatch renders on ArtStation, they usually have the same kind of way of rendering. They have the same kind of like a material, which is like this kind of skin color high poly material, and then they always have some kind of pose of their character. Yeah. So I understand Unreal and Unity are great ways to present a character. Yes. Is there a quick step by step by how to prepare a character in those softwares? Well, I have a tutorial on my YouTube channel how to render your character in Unreal Engine 5, and also, as I said before, I'm going to release a course. So let's just go back. Yeah, I'm going to release this course about this axe, where I will be showing the full process of how I was rendering this axe with all the lights set up, all this flame, fog, steam, embers. So stay tuned for that. It might be very helpful for you. Right. So. So as a character artist, do we have to even post the wireframe in portfolio, or realistic sculpt does the work? I have seen top tier artists have portfolio which with sculpted characters with proper anatomy details and poses. If you're applying to a studio, game dev studio, where you potentially be doing characters for games, it's as much as important to show your wireframe as your high poly, because high poly is only like the top of your work. It's only the beginning, and even the low poly is still not the end. So there is still baking problems that could appear, and like, texturing at some point, putting that into the engine. So there's a lot much more work to do. Right, so I think those are the questions from was giving me on the email. Now let's go back to Twitch. There's some stuff going on in the chat. All right, so okay, so I have a job offer for 3D animation. The problem is I don't have enough animations to do a reel, like I guess like a show reel presentation, like a video. But I have a lot of 3D work, so people suggested me to make a 3D generalist reel. Well, why not? But I don't know if it's worth for the people who can hire me. I mean, honestly, you can show your best if you can like if you can animate your characters, that would be very nice. If you don't, well, I guess it's not like it's very important. So I would say show what you can. For example, font resolution would be fine to present the character. I mean, like font resolution, you mean by like the dimensions of the render? So it's going to be rectangular, or depends what? Because ideally, you want to show your characters like I basically showed in examples with the division character. That will be ideal when it's like a HD resolution, or if it's like you don't want to add too much views, then I guess you can just cut your background like and canvas and make it rectangular. So is the level 3? Okay, so let's go back to the presentation again. I guess it's about this one. All right. So is level 3 enough or level 2? I mean, level 4 seems to take a lot of time modeling a lot of assets. Yeah, I agree. That's why, like, and I think actually that level 4, the background I took from Unreal Marketplace, it was actually for free. So when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I tested that and I saw, okay, actually that looks pretty cool. So that's why I use that. So, but level 3 is actually pretty nice already. So it's pretty good. But just try to stay away from level 1, I would say. That's the best advice. Okay, so can you show me a example of a good bake and a bad bake of normal map? Okay, let's see. Normal map bake, because the problematic normal map will have gradient. Yeah, so we can have a picture here. Let's put this guy here. So you see that ideally let's maybe open that up like this. So ideally you want to stay away from this kind of gradient on your normal map. So this should be just basically plain purple, and only the edges, like one edge should have like a purple color, and then the other one I guess will be the blue one to maintain the kind of that bevel. So I think it's actually more visible here. I guess the image was downloaded now. Let's go downloads. Sure. All right. So good normal map is actually this one. So we see like it doesn't have any gradients on the sides, and it has only gradient, like one gradient here at the top, and the other one, well, I guess it will be maybe this one, for example. It will be here. So those gradients are like very thin and they are holding this bevel. If you have this gradients, that means you don't have any soft, like everything just has a soft edge, which is not correct. And that's why you have those gradients, and that's why your shading on your model will be very bad and like very inappropriate, I would say. So stay away from that. So when it comes to basically the basic knowledge of normals, usually you have problems those on a hard surface objects. So if you have a 90-degree like angle, just make a cut. That's why this is the best one, because every 90-degree area here is cut. And then when you're gonna bake, it's gonna be really clean. And also on every cut, when it comes to hard surface objects or like maybe like a 90-degree situation, you need to put a hard edge. So make sure like all of those edges are hard edges. If they will be soft, you will be having this problem. All right, so you use 2K also when you need to add fabric tileable alphas? And no, I mean, but I would say it depends. Like on my personal stuff, I don't think so. At work, well, it's more like NDAs, so I don't think I can share that information. But I would say no overall. Okay, so I worked on some projects where we used 4K and then we lowered the 4K to lower in Unreal. I guess the thing is that you, when you're gonna texture in 4K, try to lower down, like, and when you have like some kind of stitches, when you're gonna lower down this 4K texture to 1K, for example, your stitches might have like jitter effect, like this anti-aliasing problem, or like even any other stroke will gonna have that. So that's why ideally, if your asset will be in, like, at least what I do at work all the time, and I have been doing it all like my 11 years. If your boots, for example, will be in the end 1K, then try to texture in 1K. You could bake your normal maps and whatever in 2K, but try to like work in 1K basically. So that way you're gonna see what you're gonna get in the final result. Because like if you work on a higher resolution and then you're gonna export lower one, you might have not the same kind of quality, not the same result. You can even test it yourself. So I'm working on UVs, but I am not able to match the texel density on the body, clothing, and boots. In for example, in Maya, you can actually copy like texel density. So I'm gonna open up Maya just to show it quickly. But while it's opening up, I'm gonna go to another question. Yes. Do some games use UDIMs? And if they use UDIMs for games, how many do they use? I saw some people use 22 textures. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure if, like, I guess you can nowadays use UDIMs, but I haven't used any of those guys, so like, it's hard to tell. Not gonna lie, I'm just gonna run away from this question. So let's have, like, I have the smile right now opened up. So let's go here. So talk about the texel density and how to make it the same for two objects. So we have this UV editor here. I'm gonna make it smaller. So in Maya, what you have here, let's make it even smaller. Let's actually combine those guys together. And I'm gonna select this guy, put this here. Yeah. So let's, like, for example, have this guy here, and this will be this. Nice. So in Maya, you have this thing that you can select your UV shell here, and then you have this texel density pixel unit, and we can click get, and now it's 117, and then this one, for example, we can get here, this will be 145. So how can we make it the same texel density? And also, let's just in case add a texture to it. So I have a checker here, and I'm gonna texture. Let's put it maybe to 30 by 30. So you see right now it's kind of different. Like if we look at the are they different? Yeah, I guess this is a bit smaller. And if we look, like if we make it bigger, this will be very small. So how do I make the same? I'm just gonna click again here. I'm gonna get this texel density. So again, 117. And I'm gonna click here on the cube. And I'm gonna click set. And now it should be the same. Even though it's not, even though by the checker somehow it's not, but it should be but it should be the same. That's interesting. Maybe it's not like the best example of the model, but basically if we select both of those UV shells, we click get, and then we can click set, and now they should be the same. Yeah, so now they are the same actually. So you see the same amount of pixels. So that when it comes to texel density and how to make things the same, basically. So how much time should I take to model a full character from high poly to final render? Well, depends. Of course, it always depends, because like the stylized character, let me go back to this. Let me go back to this row of characters. So for example, this one, all of those were done in spare time. So this one I was doing around 10 months. This one I was doing 6 months while still having like a full-time job. This one maybe also 4 months. This will be, I think it's not optimized for anything, so I think 3 months, maybe 2. And this one was pretty simple, maybe 2 months. But again, I was working on my free time, mostly on weekends. So yeah. So it really depends, I would say. The more time you have, I guess, the faster you will be, maybe, and the more you can do. This is another one. Yeah. All right. Is Marmoset enough for a final render, or I must use Unity or Unreal? I mean, ideally, it's more beneficial when you present something in the engine, because in the projects or on the projects you will be working in the engine, and you will be seeing your work in the engine, and you will be kind of messing around with the shaders, setting up everything in the engine. So ideally Unreal Engine or Unity or something else, because Marmoset is nice, but like, I guess, but I would still fight for the engines. It's also, like, I would say much more fun to, as I said might be before, like it's playing around with the shaders, because you can achieve so many interesting stuff by playing with the shaders. Yeah, and there is actually a really nice quote. So for me, learning how to rig was helpful to really understand the topology and the edge flow, which is really correct, because like, since I have like 2 tech animators behind my back at work, I still sometimes like talk to them about like, is this topology good enough? Do I need to merge those, for example, things on a belt or not? What will be better? You know, so I'm still kind of gathering piece by piece like those tips that I try to implement to my work, to my low polys, because there's so much more, like, sadly people don't talk about in the internet. Usually what I noticed is that like, people usually always teach you how to make a high poly sculpt and then render in some kind of what was the thing, yeah, Arnold or something like that, which is kind of nice, I guess, works cool, but not that many tutorials when it comes to optimization. And so coming back to optimization tutorials, that's why I decided to do this course basically. So I think this will be very helpful for those who are trying to learn how to make a real 3D asset that has some kind of optimization. This X, just in case, is actually mirrored, because you can see like 2 sides of this X, so that's why there is no point of actually having 2 sides being unique, you know. So this is like one of the tips that I can give you right now. And yeah, all right, so I hope I could get in Ubisoft Malmo, which is in Sweden, someday. Should I do a lot of military characters to get in? I mean, honestly, kind of yes. Yes, because we have like a lot of division stuff going on, projects. So yeah, I guess, like, because if you wanna imagine, if you like a hunting character artist, and you have a stylized game like World of Warcraft, and you will have people that will apply, and they will have only military characters. Would you take them? I would say I don't think you will. because you would only take those and consider those that will have some kind of World of Warcraft style. So that's why if you want to work on Mass Effect, do Mass Effect kind of fan art, or ideally something your own. It could be like initial idea, but ideally, yeah, I would like example from like my Viking. Like the main inspiration was actually Kratos from God of War, but I didn't want to make another Kratos because it's not that interesting. So that's why I did something my own that looks well. I try to kind of keep up the quality of the Kratos. I guess it's not exactly the same, of course. Yeah, but it's like it's more interesting to do something your own. But at the same time, you can use the initial idea, like Mass Effect, make like another Shepherd, but make that armor like a bit different, you know. Ideally. So when I worked on personal projects, I check how much texel density I need based on the smallest details, and then make the layouts, usually around 12-15. Is it a good approach? I guess honestly I don't look at that much texel density, at least that, well, overall when it comes to characters, because like I'm not sure if you need to, because texel density like it's like people use it more hardcore on like some kind of props, because there will be a lot of props in the game and they should be very optimized, and that's when that kind of technical side of texel density is kind of like starting to pop up more and more. When it comes to characters, I just cut some areas on and like details and make them a bit bigger, DV shell a bit bigger, so it can have more quality basically, without hurting the model that much overall. That's how I try. Right, so I tried copying the texel. Right, so I tried to copy the texel density, but my UVs are getting smaller and leaving more UV space. Oh, yeah, that's the thing. So I guess, yes, they're becoming smaller. So that means, so for example, if you are stuck with this 90, well, for example, you're stuck with this 90 amount, and you have a lot of space here, like this. Like that, kind of. So what you can do, you can actually just gather all that to a rectangular texture, for example, even though you still will have a lot free space here. So what you can do is you can then decrease, sorry, just in case, I'm gonna have my awesome orange tea. So what you can do is you can lower down the texture size. So for example, you can still make it, I guess now you can, I wonder if it's also a prop, because for props, I guess it will be more accurate. But if you don't have enough space here, then ideally you should still make it bigger, like this, at least like this. And then you see like we have 50% of UV space that is just empty. So then what you can do, let's actually put it here. So it's a little bit of optimization going on. How do I, so VX, I forgot how do I how do I change the pivot? Here, this is this, yeah, and I guess we do VX. Then I forgot how to, yeah, like this. So for example, you can make it like that, and then you can select all of those guys, and then state them like this. But then when you're gonna texture, your texture will be not squarish, but it's gonna be rectangular, which means this will be not like 1K texture. This will be like like 1K by 1K is going to be 1K by 512, for example. If you can't do that, for example, I would just try to fill those guys as much as you can on your UV space, but then maybe use less, like lower down the texture size, for example. So if it originally should be 2K, now you can maybe lower it down to 1K, for example, because your texel density changed because those shells became bigger. If they're bigger, now they have more pixels. So that can be another approach. But yeah, technical sides are like, that's why I like characters more. They have less of that kind of shenanigans. Because before I was kind of doing those things before, and like, yeah, I even forgot. So yeah, I hope that will help you. So thanks a lot. Can we ask you questions later on Discord? Yeah, sure. Feel free. Feel free. Can you give a rough poly count for super realistic, semi-realistic, and stylized? Like it's, you know, it's a question that is insanely hard to answer because every next gen we're gonna crank the poly count, maybe even double. You know, I would say let's start with the super realistic character. For example, if you played Infamous Second Son, there was Delson, which is the main character. I think back then in 2014 he had 60,000 polygons. Nowadays I guess it can be 100, I think, but that's including the face. I'm not sure if we do include the hair, because hair and the face are the most that will have the most polygons, basically. So I would go, if it's super realistic, it can be 100,000 with face, maybe with hair, depends what kind of haircut is that. So hair can be just only hair for super realistic characters. It can be 30,000, maybe even more, depends, of course. I think Eloy from Horizon, she has a lot. When it comes to, like, for example, clothing for super realistic, it could be like, it's just like I'm trying to just kind of come up with numbers in a, I guess, kind of, but like if I'm using all my experience before that I was doing characters before, and I think like super realistic clothing can be, I think, around 100,000. Honestly, nowadays it's kind of okay. I would argue, honestly, because we don't need that much polygons, because as I said before, I would add only polygons there to kind of highlight the silhouette. If there is no point of having like this kind of sleeve without folds and having it like a lot of edge loops all over the place. Like, there is no point. You can cut that down to like 2 times and nothing's gonna change. Well, I guess the size of the game are gonna change, I would say, that's for sure. So yeah, so around 100,000 nowadays, it's just normal. For semi-realistic, just double that other way around. No, not like double that, like double that other way around. So it can be, for clothing, it can be 50,000. For the full character with everything, it can be 100,000 with the haircut and face, I think. For stylized characters, if you look at the Overwatch is actually pretty interesting to look at, because some characters, they are almost mirrored. At least I saw some of them, like their legs, their arms are just mirrored, and they are pretty low poly. And they are low poly because like they want to make sure, like Blizzard want to make sure that that game will run on every PC basically. So they can have, I think, 20, like that's just like overall my shenanigans right now, like 20, I think, 1,000 polygons, I think, maybe 35,000, but that's just, I'm just kind of trying to eyeball that. because like as I said before, next gen always like PS6, Xbox, whatever series, XL, whatever they're gonna come up with, they will have more and more. So I saw the 1K by 512 workflow on some game models, but I wasn't understanding it. That's interesting. Yeah, it's basically like you're gonna lay down your UVs like in half, then stretch them, and then when you're gonna texture in substance, you need to put your texture size, like by default it's locked by the lock by the lock icon. So you wanna unlock that icon and then put 512 on like 1K 512. Basically you can do the resolution, and then when you're gonna export, it's also gonna be exporting, I think, in I don't remember, is it gonna be exporting in rectangular view in the end, or is it still gonna be like 1K, kind of looking like 1K by 1K, which is a square, but then it's just gonna be very stretched. I honestly don't remember. Or maybe you can actually export that in 1K by 1K, but then in the engine you can set it up to 512 on one side. Honestly, I don't remember. Right, so I'm doing a super realistic character with everything. I am almost 180k trees, but that includes hair and face and everything else. I mean, I guess you're pretty fine, honestly. But ideally, like if you can optimize something, I would still optimize, because like standards are there. But like the lower your character is, but at the same time it maintains all the quality, all the satisfaction, I would say, then that means that you are really nice, like a potential employee, because you can optimize. So I would always optimize, even at work. Even I optimize even more than I have to, because I think it's just also fun. Yeah. So here we are. Oh. So I think if there is not that many questions anymore, we can call it a day. I'm gonna upload this webinar soon to my YouTube, so stay tuned, and thank you people for joining and for the questions. That was very interesting. So stay tuned for the future updates, for my course, of course, and for more webinars, because I'm gonna do more of those. So thank you so much, and see you next time. Subscribe for the new content, and feel free to join my Discord channel, where you can share your art and give ideas for the future videos. So thank you for watching.